Hello, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show. Wow, I am excited, I am fascinated, and I am creatively charged, let's say. I'm not really any of those, except excited. I am excited because I just had a really good talk with one of my, HR representatives, so that's nice, and I'm really excited for the future now, so everything's going good, not everything, but okay, I really need to learn to stop giving a nuance to everything I say, because sometimes I would just say like, oh, everything's good. And then immediately I'd be like, oh, well, not everything is, because, well, that is not going good, that is not going good. I need to stop putting myself down like that. And you too, okay? You're listening. You know what I'm talking about. That little voice in your head that just instantly is like, oh, he's happy, let's not allow him to be happy. And I'm like, shut up. Just, shut up. Anyway. So, I'm not going to reveal yet what I'm excited about because it's all too soon, but I did make a mistake, and I'll talk to you about the mistake for now first, because, well, I make a lot of mistakes, and, why not make an entire podcast around the subject of my mistakes? It sounds like a good idea, doesn't it? Now, what did I do? My HR guy, he was asking me like, oh, how has the commute been? How has it been driving to work every morning? And I tell him like, oh yeah, the commute, like driving to work, I really don't mind. I enjoy it really, because back in the day I had a pretty calm road, and now it's a bit more exciting. But it's still, I still enjoy it. It's still fine. Who could say that they enjoy the traffic to work, right? So I'm all right with it. I'm happy with where I am. But then I wasn't satisfied with that answer myself, so I decided to add more spice to it. That was a bad idea. Now that I think about it, let's go up here. So my big mouth starts telling him like, oh yeah, you know what? I found stuff to entertain me while driving the car. I'm recording a podcast. I still hear myself say it, and I still think like, you dumbass. Why would you tell someone from work you record a podcast in your car on the way to work? It's dumb. Don't do that. Don't be me. Okay? Just don't. If you could not be me, you should, right? If I could not be me for a year, I would do it. I would be someone else for a year. I think that would be fascinating. But different subject, different time. Anyway, so I told him that I record a podcast. So if you're listening, hey, HR guy, how are you doing? Nah, it's all right. I told him that I record a podcast, and he was instantly like, oh, I should really check that out. What's it called? And I'm like, it's called Genius But Slow. And he's like, oh yeah, okay, I'm definitely gonna look for that. And I should have left it. I should have just left it where it was. Because his first question was like, oh, is it under your real name? I should have just said yes and just be done with it. Now I said like, oh, it's Genius But Slow. And then he was like, oh, okay, yeah, that's fine. And I should have just left it, but I didn't. So I told him, well, yeah, maybe you're not going to find Genius But Slow. So I tell him, well, it's under the channel name Corba Crew. And he's like, oh, yeah, okay, yeah, I'll look for it. And so he writes Corba Crew down. And then I tell him, like, well, you're not going to find it under my real name. You're going to find it under Matthias. So why am I giving him everything he needs to find this freaking podcast where I say a lot of dumb things? I kind of hope that I didn't just ruin the entire beginning of that podcast. If I did, whoops. Otherwise, this won't really have an intro, and the podcast will just start over here. because apparently something was blocking the mic, and now I've been touching the mic. I'm so sorry. Anyway, welcome to the show, ladies and gentlemen. Let me just start over, because if that first part gets cut out, then you have a proper start now. Welcome to the show. It's not really been an exciting day, as in I didn't have too much to do today. So I took it calmly, but at the same time I had a really important meeting with the HR guy, so that was exciting, and I loved that. I prepared for it throughout the day, and then eventually it happened, and yeah, it was quite nice. I think I'm gonna do this. Bye-bye. See, sometimes on the road, because something just happened, so I'm gonna address it. Sometimes on the road, I'm really nice, right? I used to stop for everything, and I was really like that kind of annoying sort of stopper, let's say. And now I've learned to be more assertive, more like, hey, I deserve my spot on the road. I just let someone cut me off, so I'm not gonna let it happen twice, right? I'm gonna let someone through, but I'm not gonna let an entire line of cars through, okay? I got somewhere to be as well. Well, back in the day, I had loads of time. I always had so much time, so I always thought, like, yeah, if I let him pass and I let him go first, what do I lose, right? Because I got time. Anyway, I'm not like that anymore. I'm full on a douche with a BMW. I don't have the BMW, but I drive like I have one. Again, jokes. I'm not dangerous on the road. Just sometimes I think I could be nicer, and I could let someone through or let someone cross the road a little quicker than just driving past and not really paying attention to them at all. Right. So what do I want to talk about? Because I don't want to talk about what we talked about with the HR guy. But what do I want to talk about? Now, something happened, right? So you might remember that the first podcast I did and I uploaded, that was with a different microphone. Now I got a little bit better one. I don't think you noticed that there's a quality change, to be honest, but it's a better one, trust me. And yeah, whatever. But between my first microphone and the second one, I already sent the old one back. So I was without one of these microphones for in the car for quite a while. While, like, that was on the height of my hype for this podcast. So I was really excited to talk in the car. So I decided, you know what? No one's recording, but let's just talk anyway, because no one's gonna know. I usually wasn't in traffic for that long that people could see me through their window, so, you know, why not just talk to myself? So I decided to do that, and a lot of stuff came up. It was almost therapeutic how much stuff came up and how much I was thinking about my own life. So now I'm running into the issue of thinking, have I spoken about this during a podcast yet? Because I don't know. I don't really... That is the entire idea of this podcast. I'm not really paying attention to what I'm saying. I'm just talking and mainly focusing on the road. That is the thing. I'm focused on the road, and maybe, perhaps, I'll say something useful. But that's really secondary to the story. Now, what I don't think I've talked about yet is something that I've always really been excited about. Something that I was talking about with a friend of mine, and I was telling her about how excited I used to be about presentations back in the day. Now that I really feel like I've talked about this before, so I'm not entirely sure if I'm even gonna air this podcast if I've talked about it before. Anyway, doesn't really matter. I'm enjoying myself. I hope you are too. Welcome to the show. So there's a lot of things that I used to do, right? There's a lot of things that I used to do during presentations because I thought they were really, really funny. Now, let me just give you a couple examples of what I did, because I thought in my mind entertainment, the value of entertainment was way above the value of actually saying something useful. You can still notice that. That's still kind of my core to this day. And during presentations in school, that was the same thing. Now, that wasn't really that smart because I didn't get good grades because of it. Even one day a teacher even said, and that is this story actually, the teacher even said after this story, that I should pay more attention to actually making a good presentation than trying to make people laugh. And I just stood there and I thought, well, you got me. You got me. Dang it. You know that I care so much more about what people think than what one guy in the back thinks and is making his little notes. So he got me on that, I'll admit. So this one time, right, this was in his class, I was making a presentation, and I always thought, there needs to be one thing in this presentation that no one really sees coming. There needs to be one thing that is just funny or grabs or like re-grabs people's attention, right? Just to catch them and be like, okay, hey, pay attention, I'm telling you something interesting. Something in the middle of a presentation that just wakes them up, because of course, like, the information itself is quite boring. You can't really change that. So yeah. And I was thinking, and I was, quite honestly, I was out of ideas. I didn't know what to do anymore because I had already done such crazy stuff. So I was thinking about presentations, about other people doing presentations. And there was one mistake that would always come up, and I hated it because I was just thinking, like, people, be more careful. It's, at this point, that mistake that everyone makes is just boring. It bores me. And it bores the teachers as well. So what usually happens is people are doing their little PowerPoint presentation, right? And in the middle of their presentation, suddenly a black screen would come up. And at the top, in white letters, they would say, click to end the presentation, or click to end the slide presentation, or the slideshow, whatever. That's what it would say on top. And that is when the student at the front would suddenly go all red in their face and be all embarrassed, like, oh no, I uploaded the wrong PowerPoint presentation. Oh no, what have I done? So everyone that would be standing up front would just be looking all kinds of guilty and just be all kinds of ashamed as well. And they would start looking at each other like, I sent it to you and you needed to upload it. And oh no, I brought the drive, the USB drive. Like, everyone would just be panicked. And I would just think, like, come on, people, like, a bit of organization skills and you wouldn't make these kind of dumb and silly mistakes. But at the same time, I thought, how can I make this funny? Right, so I decided, you know what, I'm just going to make fun of the people that always do this. And I'm going to take a screenshot of the last slide, right? I'm going to take a screenshot of that black screen with white letters, click to end slideshow. And I'm going to put it smack in the middle of my presentation. In the middle, there would just be an entire slide dedicated to a black screen with white letters, click to end slideshow. I thought that was going to be funny. So I'm doing my presentation. It's boring as hell, obviously. I'm trying to make it entertaining by the way I speak and stuff. But, it's just, it was quite dry material. Even I couldn't make that fun. So, then the point came where I knew, like, oh, the black screen is going to come up. So I'm standing there with the little remote in my hands. And I'm talking like, this building is from that era. And I click, and I even build it up, right? Oh, and the next frame, the next slide is gonna be amazing because the next slide is actually a click. Oh, it's a black screen, and I just let my face go red. I just let myself look so freaking embarrassed. I I'm panicked. I'm looking around like, oh no, no, no. I run over to the computer and I'm like, oh no, 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 oh no, wrong PowerPoint, oh no, no, no. And I see the teacher in the back. The teacher in the back, legit, he had back problems, so he would always be standing against the closet or something, or a cabinet. And I just see him like throw his hands in the air and be like, "Ah, oh, for fuck's sake, another one, another student that does it wrong. Not a single presentation pack could go right with all of my students. Every time there needs to be one freaking student that does it wrong." You gonna go? There needs to be one. I just saw him think that, right? I just saw him think, "Oh, my days, I hate my students." He was so distressed. And then I just click. I go to the next slide. I say, "Gotcha!" And I just move on. I instantly start talking. I instantly go, "Oh, this building is from that era, and you can see that because the pointy bits are going up instead of down." I just do my entire presentation, never mentioning that again. And I just see him in the back looking all confused, like, I just actually had the thought that I hated my students because of this freaking guy that just trolled me in a way that I never saw coming. What just happened? You just saw it in his face that he just couldn't comprehend what the heck just happened. Because who does that? Who does that? So legit, that was the entire joke was just based on who does that, who is like that. So I did it, and I just continued the entire presentation. I was just doing stuff. And at the end, he just said like, "Okay, Matt, look, it's nice that you tried to make it entertaining, but focus less on the entertainment part and just focus more on informing us and actually put some substance in your presentations." And I'm just standing there with a huge grin on my face thinking, "You're just salty, man. You're just salty that I got you." So I took none of his feedback seriously because I just loved it way too much. Of course, in the end, I did take his feedback seriously. I did start taking presentations a little bit more serious, but I just kept that kind of stuff in just to troll the teachers like a little bit, like a random bit. Because, to me, that was freaking hilarious. Oh my days. Oh, you should have seen his face. Legit, how he went from like waving his hands in the air like, "Oh my god, not again," to, "What did you just do?" And are we just, did everyone see that? Did everyone see that he just did that? He's just moving on as if nothing happened? We're not gonna address this, people. So you just see his face having all of these emotions at the same time. And it was the best thing ever. Not the best thing, because I trolled him again a couple of times, which probably was better. I don't actually know if I've ever told the story of me calling him an idiot. Right? I don't actually know if I told that story yet. So let me just tell you the story, and if I've already told it, I'll cut it out. Anyway, so I called him an idiot. But that is sort of the challenge that I put myself, right? I try to break the rules, but in such a way that no one could ever blame me for breaking the rules, right? Calling your teacher an idiot, that is a big no-no, right? That is something you absolutely cannot do. And everyone would agree that is something you can't do. But I did it, and no one complained. So that is probably my proudest moment in high school. So I'll tell you what happened. It was English or Dutch classes, I don't know. But we all got a part of America that we needed to talk about. So my hatred of America started back then, by the way. I'm joking, So I got the Everglades, right? In Florida, the Everglades, the stuff over there. I needed to talk about that. And I'm like, okay, well, that's a quite interesting subject, so I'll just talk about that. And it was a special sort of presentation, right? It wasn't classic, like you stood in front of classroom and you just did your stuff, right? You did your show, let's call it. No, this was like a little stall. It was a little marketplace that we would make in the classroom, and a bunch of us, like half the class, would have a little stall that they would have to decorate and all that sort of stuff. So I had to decorate my little stall in everything related to the Everglades, right? There was a map of America there. There was all kinds of stuff there just to kind of make you think of the Everglades. And then the students would be going around in groups to all the little stalls and hear each other's presentations, right? They were in different groups. I remember this one group in particular with a Russian friend I have, and I called her an idiot as well, because I did the same routine every time, right? I knew my text, I knew everything that I wanted to say, and those were practice rounds. Calling my friends idiots, that was practice, right? Because I knew the big fish was still coming along. The teacher would still need to hear my presentation. So, and I think I was last in line for the group that my teacher was in. So I was just practicing and doing my show, right? And eventually he came. Eventually he passed by. And while thinking of how to decorate that stupid stall, I looked in my cupboard, in my bedroom, in my night cabinet, I'd call it, and I remember, I don't know why, I was a weird kid, I guess. I found on holiday somewhere, I found a stone, a silly stone. It was just a really smooth white stone, right? That is what I found, and I thought, oh, that stone is actually really cool. That is really interesting. There's nothing interesting about a stone, but anyway, it was a smooth white stone, sort of it looked like a crocodile egg. That is kind of how I would describe it. It looked like a crocodile egg. So I thought, ooh, what if I just brought that along to the classroom and just showed people, right? I would just show it and convince people that I actually had a crocodile egg. So I took it to my classroom, and it was basically my only decoration, really, other than a map of America and all that sort of stuff. It wasn't very well decorated because I'm not that kind of creative person. But I had the crocodile egg, and that was my big sort of event of the evening, right? That I knew that was the thing that was going to reel my audience in. I didn't need all those fancy decorations because I had a legitimate crocodile egg. At least that's what they thought. So I hid it at first, right? I had a little box for it. I had a little box with toilet paper all around it, just cushioning it, just making sure that it wouldn't break while it's a solid stone, like it's a rock. But just making sure that it wouldn't break, and I would always handle it with like insane care, even though I threw my backpack on the ground like 3 times during that day, and the egg was in there. But once I took it out, I always handled it with care, because you never know, you know, it could break. So during my presentation, I would tell them a story, and back then I was really interested in sort of lying and what lies entailed, or what made a lie a good lie. Well, lies are always bad, but like, how much could you convince people of stuff, right? Even though it's a total lie, how far could you take your lie? I was really interested and fascinated by that at the time. So I had my crocodile egg, and I thought, oh, you know what? A good lie is always hidden in the truth. So what if I just combine a truthful story with a lie? So I started telling this entire story of how my parents went to Florida visited the Everglades, which is true, by the way. They did visit Florida, although that was long before I was born, so they weren't even thinking of me back then. But anyway, I told them the whole story of how they went to Florida, to the Everglades, and they went on one of these hoverboats, right, to look at the wildlife. They didn't do that, but let's say they did. And they actually found a crocodile egg, and they brought it home with them, especially for me. And I've been treasuring that dragon egg ever since. It's never hatched, obviously, because it's a dead egg, but yeah, it meant a lot to me, so I always kept it. It's my little crocodile egg, right? It's from the Everglades, so ideal for this presentation about the Everglades. That is what I was telling them. It's a complete lie. And eventually I thought, you know what, I can push this even further, right? I don't even have to just convince them. There needs to be a bit of a climax, right? Because I'm not malicious with my lie. I'm not trying to actually trick someone. I want to reveal them, like I want to reveal the lie at some point, but it needs to be grand. It needs to be amazing, right? I'm not just going to say like, oh, by the way, that's not actually an egg, it's just a rock. Not going to say that. It's too dry, and there needs to be more spice to it. So I started experimenting. And I thought, how far could I take people in this lie? So sometimes during my presentation, I would take the egg and I would tell these people like, oh, hey, so this is a legitimate egg, but of course it's not going to hatch anymore. It's dead. But you can still, right? And I would take the egg and I would bring it to their ear and I would tell them like, hey, but you can still hear if I shook the egg a little bit, right? Just next to your ear, like that. If I shake the egg a little bit, then you could still hear the stuff inside, like sort of, what's the word? Sort of like glug around. That sounds really weird, but I forgot the word, to be honest. So I would just be like taking the egg like very carefully, holding it next to their ear, and tell them like, yeah, can you hear it? It's still in there, right? You can still hear the egg and the yolk of the egg like move around, yeah? So I would be shaking the rock next to their ear. And eventually, the more I started being pushy about it, the more, like, the easier they went like, oh yeah, I can hear it. There's actually something inside there. Wow, that's actually a crocodile egg. I'm actually listening to a dead crocodile egg. Wow, this is amazing. Best day ever, right? And once they started thinking, ooh, best day ever, that is when I would crush them, obviously. So that is when I would just take the rock, I would slam it on the table, like actually almost dent the table, right? I would almost dent the table by the way I smacked it onto the table. And I would just tell them like, that's a rock, idiot, you're hearing voices. And that is what I did to my friend. And my friend, at first, my Russian friend, she was just flabbergasted. Like, she did not know what to say. You can go. She did not know what to say at all. But then my teacher came along. And my teacher, same story. I completely convinced him that he was listening to a crocodile egg. I slammed it on the table, and I just told him, dude, you should really talk to someone about this, because you're hearing voices. It's just a rock, right? You're hearing things in your head. I think you're going a bit crazy. Talk to a therapist. That's my recommendation. And again, I just did the same thing as the other one. I just continued my presentation. I would just call them an idiot, tell them they need therapy, and then I would just move on and start talking about the other wildlife in the Everglades, right? How wet it is down there. Oh man, their faces, like the rest of the presentation. That was the most difficult part of all, because I had to keep a straight face during all that. I had to keep a straight face for the rest of the presentation while they were sitting there dumbfounded, like, I just listened to a rock and I thought I heard stuff inside it. Oh my days, teaching really wasn't for me. My mum was right. I was just making this guy contemplate his life choices at that point, and I freaking loved it. Oh man, he was a fun teacher, to be fair, so you could joke with him a little bit. But point being, I called him an idiot during that, and no one actually complained. There were a couple students that kind of were shocked when I said it, like, oh my god, you just called our teacher an idiot. But no one really could say anything, because, I mean, let's be honest, he actually was being an idiot there. He actually thought that a rock was making noise. So, me saying that he was an idiot was actually not that wrong. It was just facts. So, and he was basically too in shock to even have noticed that I said it. I said it so quickly. He was shocked by the sudden knock. Like, I just completely took him in a trance of like, oh yeah, I can hear the rock speak to me. Yeah. And then I would just suddenly wake him up by smacking the rock on the table. And during that shock, I would call him an idiot. But it was so hidden. It was so well hidden in that initial shock that, yeah, I never got in trouble for it. And I respect that man to this day. It was a lot of fun messing with him. Oh my lordy days. It was so much fun messing with him. I don't think he always appreciated it as much, because he was just listening to boring presentations, right? That is what his job was. His job was to listen to students stumble and fall over every single word that they say during an explanation that they're giving. And then there was me just kind of smacking rocks on tables. So I think in that regard, I was a very invisible student, by the way. I didn't speak much at all. But I think at that point, that was really a moment for me that I'm actually proud of. Because that is something where I stood up and said like, hey, this is me. You're not going to change me now. I'm having fun with just who I am. Normally, I would hide myself, right? No one really knew me in high school. I had friends, but no one really knew who I was, because I hid myself, right? But during presentations, I was just too excited to do random stuff. So that was a bit where I showed people who I was. Anyway, I have arrived home, so I will have to speak to you people later. Thank you for entertaining me during this incredible time of need. Time of need being me in the cardboard. Oh, whoa, let's not touch the sides, yeah? Let's not kill myself. Okay, anyway. Thank you for listening again to Genius But Slow, the podcast. Make sure to tune in whenever we do these sort of live streams on twitch.tv/CorbaCrew. Make sure to tune into that, because I think they're pretty fun, and they're more fun when you guys join. And to know when we are going to stream, make sure to join the Discord. Anyway, I'm not going to do more YouTube talk than that. Please like, subscribe. Bye-bye.